Good evening, and welcome to Campaigns. I'm David Johnston. I'm Vice President of Marketing and Digital Media for the KU Alumni Association, but for the last semester, I've been a lecturer in strategic communications. More importantly, I've had the privilege of working with these outstanding students sitting before you. Now, before I turn the microphone over to them, I want to make a few introductions and thank some special guests. First, I want to thank Dean Brill, faculty, and J-School administrators who may be in attendance. Thank you specifically for supporting these students throughout their J-School journeys. I'd also like to welcome, thank, and acknowledge any parents, family members, and friends in the audience, or those who may be watching online tonight. You have every reason to be proud of these students who are about to participate in probably the most important event of their academic careers to date. So, no pressure, guys. But don't worry, you guys are ready. But you know you could not have reached this point without support. Students, please take a moment to thank those who have supported you. Throughout the semester, the students were fortunate to be able to hear from alumni guests, graduates of the program, who returned to share their wisdom and experience with the class. They offered broader and in many ways better perspectives than I certainly could, and it added immeasurably to the class. So for those of you in attendance, thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Kelly Vickers for her administrative support, and Wendy Shoemaker, who helped us with a team building exercise during the semester designed to accentuate the students' individual strengths. And on a personal note, I want to thank retired Professor Dr. Tim Bankston, who was my advisor and mentor when I was an undergrad in the J School back in the early 90s. Thank you, Dr. Bankston, for helping me prepare to teach this seminal class. And I also want to give a very special thanks to retired Professor Bob Basso. This course, of course, is taught in multiple ways, and my approach this semester has followed the Bob Basso model for teaching campaigns, minus the song and dance at the end. But when I met with Professor Basso back in January, he prepared meticulous notes for me and offered a wealth of advice. He told me he considered the preparation a legacy project, which I know had special meaning for him, but Bob, it was even more meaningful and humbling to me. So I cannot thank you enough. And maybe most importantly, those who have sacrificed to allow me to embark on this journey. My family. Without them, I am nothing. So, yeah, it's been a fun ride. And now, on with the show. We, of course, would not be here tonight without our esteemed client, the Kansas Union, led, of course, by the incomparable David Mucci. I sometimes like to say that I owe my career to David Mucci, who first hired me at KU, and I mean that sincerely. David has continued to be a mentor, supporter, and partner throughout my career at KU. So thank you, David. We'd also like to welcome the rest of the client team, Lisa Kring, JJ O'Toole-Curran, Michelle Compton, Lauren Haskin, plus Tom, Brian, and of course the venerable Mike Reed, who all helped us along the way. Welcome and thank you for supporting the academic mission of this university and for joining us on this journey. This year's challenge, for those of you who know, was a little bit different. When the semester started last January, the Kansas Union had already spent years planning a badly needed renovation that would be funded by a student fee referendum. That referendum would not take place until April 12th. So with two very different possible outcomes, most of the first half of the semester was focused on research. Their primary and secondary research was absolutely exhaustive. It included surveys, focus groups, field visits to quote-unquote peer unions that had recently been renovated at K-State and Mizzou. So David, thanks for that. If the students did their job, I told them, they would be able to accurately forecast the reasons why the referendum either would or would not pass, and they would be able to reliably predict the result well in advance. And guess what? They did. The results of their research, along with preliminary recommendations, were given to the union the day before the vote. And of course, they were right. It didn't pass. And so the challenge for the next few weeks of the semester was crystal clear. Position the Kansas Union favorably in the minds of its key constituency, students, ideally in preparation for another run at renovation in the future. So what you're about to see tonight is a culmination of hundreds of hours, billable hours, as Professor Basso would say, in service to the Kansas Union. The research book, well over 100 pages, plus each campaign's plans books, are among the deliverables which delve deeper into the details of each campaign. Tonight's format is simple. While the students worked on the research phase as an entire class, they have broken into 5 teams of 6 people each to develop their campaigns. Now, rather than use colors to define the teams, we decided to inject a little bit of KU history, and so we have Team 1912. Remember these? Team 1920. Team 1923. Team 1929. And Team 1941. They will present appropriately in chronological order for 20 minutes each, plus a brief 5-minute period for questions from the client after each presentation. For the benefit of our online audience, students, the clients will need a handheld microphone so that the question can be heard by all. After the third presentation, there'll be a 10-minute intermission. Students, it has been a sincere honor and pleasure working with you. No doubt you remember meeting with the client in this very room, January 26th. Hopefully you've learned something since then. I told you on that first day that this is your last practice swing. Your next campaign will be a real at-bat. So welcome to the big leagues. I also reminded you, and you're probably sick of hearing me saying this, that any one of you could put together a great strategic campaign on your own, if that was the assignment. But that's not the challenge of this course. The challenge is to put together a campaign as a team. Individuals functioning as one single unit, no one more important than the other. So Jayhawks, the stage is yours. Esteemed client, without further ado, let me present Team 1912.
Sorry, the Wi-Fi is really slow.
Why we need a renovation.
This is our plan. This is part of our presentation. I guess they don't really have to be connected to it.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, oh, you can do it now, and then I'll press play. Okay, perfect. Wait, let me just make sure. Cool.
Hello, and welcome to David Johnston's J-640 Strategic Campaigns presentation. We're Group 1912, and we're incredibly excited to share with you what we've been working on this entire semester. My name is Thomas Petrie, and I'm the Research Director for Group 1912. Something we're going to be sharing with you as we go along is the thing we're going to miss the most about KU. For me, it's definitely going to be the people. Not just my classmates, friends, and peers, but the professors, faculty, staff, and anyone here that's impacted my time for the better. So going forward, we're going to start with an overview of our 3 primary goals. Then we're going to do a recap of the research that got us to those goals, and finally finish with how we believe these goals can be attained. At the end, there will also be an opportunity for you guys to ask us any questions you have. So our 3 goals are as follows. The first one is to strategically communicate and emphasize the purpose and importance of the Kansas Memorial Union to students. The second goal is to continue the conversation surrounding the renovation of the Kansas Memorial Union. And the third and final goal is to perpetuate a welcoming atmosphere for the students of the Kansas Memorial Union. For the sake of this presentation, we are going to focus on the first goal, which we believe is the most important, which again is to strategically communicate and emphasize the purpose and importance of the Kansas Memorial Union to students. As you saw in our previous presentation, we conducted extensive research throughout the semester to get a sense of the student body's perceptions and attitudes regarding the Kansas Union. To recap, we conducted 5 focus groups, interviewed 5 representatives from different organizations on campus, and distributed a survey to over 450, which elicited over 450 responses. What we found is although students use many of the union services, such as the DeBruce Center, the Underground, even traveling just to get coffee from the Kansas Union, many are unaware or simply take for granted the value the union adds to their day-to-day lives. The results of our survey and focus groups show that students use the union primarily for the bookstore and to attend specific events. When spending leisure time on campus, students are far less inclined to travel out of their way to the union, opting instead to stay at their respective school buildings, such as the new engineering building, which has been completed, and the business building as well. Many of those school buildings offer similar things that students are looking for, such as coffee, nice meeting places, and is closer to their classes. The second most likely was to return home or visit the Underground or DeBruce Center, which students viewed as more central or closer to them. So the biggest issue we ran into is that many students do not have significant personal attachments to the union, and consequently choose to spend time in locations more convenient for them. As David mentioned, we conducted 2 field visits to some neighboring schools, and from this research, we concluded that students at these unions took a lot more pride in their unions and were the driving force behind each of those projects. So at Kansas State, they implemented a very similar referendum that we did, which, as you can see, passed. But they went about it in a slightly different way. Students were the main driving force behind that project. They determined the fee, and it was really branded as by students for students. Students really had a say in every single aspect of it, and it kind of came from the ground up in that sense. At Mizzou, they do have a memorial union, but their primary union, or the one we visited and want to compare to, they actually refer to as a student center. So the culture surrounding that union is completely different from the one here, in the sense that, as you can see, there's spaces for entertainment. As the restaurant you see there is actually in their union. And then there's also lots of nice study areas and stuff like that as well. So from this research, what does this all mean? What we've found is that it was evident that for a future referendum to be successful, the union must hold a special place in the hearts and minds of students. In order to inspire students to improve their union for future Jayhawks, they must recognize its value and see the building as an integral part of campus culture.
Hi everyone, I'm Courtney Emmert. I was the Marketing Communications Director for this lovely team. The thing I'll miss most about KU is probably the long walks on Jayhawk Boulevard. So to get us started, I wanted to do a brief little exercise. So I want everyone to take a second and imagine seeing this headline: Allen Fieldhouse closes its doors after 62 years. We asked the one and only Tyler Self, how he would feel about Allen Fieldhouse potentially closing its doors. And he said that KU without Allen Fieldhouse is like a unicorn without a horn. It's not the same. Next, I want you to imagine this headline. So graduating students no longer able to walk through the Campanile because it will be shutting down. We asked a graduating senior how she would feel about this, and she said both of her parents and her older sister walked through the Campanile in graduation, and she cannot imagine not being able to do the same. And finally, imagine seeing this headline splashed across the cover of the UDK and how much chaos and commotion would ensue. The wagon wheel closing. So we asked a frequent goer of the wheel how she would feel about this. And Grace Tiedemann said, if the wheel was shut down, I would be devastated. Feel you, Grace. So now Berkeley will talk about our big idea.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Berkeley Wright, and I was the planning director for Team 1912. And one thing I'm really going to miss about my time here at KU was cheering on the Hawks at Allen Fieldhouse. Like Courtney said, I think a lot of us would be disappointed if Allen Fieldhouse was ever closed its doors. So the reason why we're telling you something that we're going to miss from KU is because we want that to be the union. We want students to leave here missing the union, to come back to show it to people, and to miss their time that they spent here. So the reason why we're going to focus on our big idea today is because we felt that it really resonated most with the students, and obviously we have more objectives and tactics for you guys, which you'll see by the plans book, but for the sake of our presentation, this is really the idea that we wanted to get across. It really defines what we believe in, what we think is going to be most effective. So how we came up with this big idea is obviously KU is built on a huge history of Mass tradition, and a lot of that tradition is the buildings here, the landmarks, and the experiences that it offers to students. A lot of those places, KU wouldn't be KU without. And like I said earlier, we want KU to not be anything without its union. So without further ado, our big idea is to have a week without your U, which seems totally dramatic, but hear us out. So obviously we were kind of going off of the perspective of you don't really know what you have until it's gone. And we know that students, we already know from what Thomas said, that students are taking complete advantage of what they have, they're taking for granted what what the union actually has to offer. A lot of the services that the union oversees, the students don't even know, like the underground and the DeBruce. So to continue, we're going to go over our actual week without our U, how we have planned it all out. So the first, on Monday, we want to actually close the underground, and by doing so, we think that the students will realize that, this is actually overseen by the union, and that's something that students will miss. Like we said, students love to go to the underground. There's a huge student traffic area. It's a hub in the central of campus, and we think that the students will actually realize that, what would the underground be without the union? Nothing. On Tuesday, the DeBruce Center, also a new, fun, modern environment that students and athletes can spend their time. And again, they don't even realize that it's overseen by the union. Again, adding that value back into the union does so much for them and they don't even realize. On Wednesday, the KU bookstore, like Thomas said, that is one of the main reasons that students even visit the union in the first place. They have to get their books, which is a vital part of education. They have to get their school supplies and, their game day gear like we're wearing today. Thursday, the level 4 of the union, which we feel is really the face of the union. You walk in, there's the coffee shop, the Hawk shop, there's some study nooks, but most importantly, they have the Silk offices, which those are the student leadership offices. And a day without that level 4 being open would be a day without student leadership, which is very important to our university. Friday, the Union Food Court, obviously everyone raves over Panda Express being down there, and we feel that students would really be affected by this strategy. Obviously, we would have signs on the doors explaining to students why this is closed, and we had advertised beforehand, and apologizing to students for the inconvenience, but overall just asking them to appreciate the other students that they can actually, or the other services that they can actually use on that day. So now I'm going to pass it to Lex to talk about some actual specific tactics.
Hi guys, I'm Lexi Dieter, and I am the account coordinator for 1912. And what I will miss most about KU are the lovely tulips that always bloom in the spring semester. Very girly, I know. So in order to create an understanding among students of our campaign, we want to incorporate a mix of traditional and social media marketing elements. So we want these elements to work together to get our message across to our key audiences in this situation, obviously students. So our social media marketing plan will include content posted on various platforms, namely Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. These are all accounts that the union is currently using, so just utilizing those more, obviously. Trying to get KU students more engaged with our campaign and what a week without your U would look like. So, sorry. The content posted on these social media platforms will reiterate our message and help students understand the true purpose of the union and the services that it provides, but also what it means to KU's campus. So these advertisements will emphasize what a day without the union would look like and be placed around campus. So what it would look like is a day without the union is a day without student jobs, student organizations, and in my opinion, most importantly, crunchy chicken cheddar wraps. Additionally, we will table on Wesco providing a chalkboard where students will be able to fill in their own blanks and personalize our campaign. This visual is simply for our presentation, but we plan on having the chalkboard being larger where students can fill in their own blanks but also see the blanks of other students. This creates a unique opportunity for students to personalize our campaign and what a union would look, or what a unionless campus would look like. And what that would mean to them. It also allows them to see what the union means to their peers and other students on campus. So we realize that this campaign and shutting down the union and the services that the union provides is extremely disruptive, and it's a bold statement. However, we believe that that our message would resonate with students, and that will extremely outweigh the profit and losses the union could incur, which we have also included in our budget.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sydney Legg, and I was the creative director this semester for 1912. And the thing that I'm going to miss the most, and this is a little strange, but I'm going to really miss our buses because they took me to and from school every day over the last 4 years. And on the way there, I could do last-minute homework, I could read. On the way home, it was a way to kind of decompress from the day. And now I have to drive myself to work. So who wants to deal with all that? I don't. So that's what I'm going to miss. Before I move on to the second phase of our campaign, I want to follow up on some of what Lexi said. One of our class periods, as David had mentioned in his presentation, we got to hear from a lot of different people other than David. And one of the days we got to go to Callahan Creek, which was here in Lawrence. And we spoke with the chief strategist there, Jan Eric, about our campaigns projects. He talked a lot about challenging complacency and being unconventional in your ideas. He also told us about this campaign conducted by REI, an outdoor gear company that did the unthinkable. On Black Friday, they closed all their stores and encouraged their employees to spend the day outside with their families. Of course, this seems crazy to do on Black Friday, the biggest sales day of any retail store, but the results were actually incredible. Upon hearing about this bold move, online sales on that particular day skyrocketed, and it was the most that they had ever seen. So coming into this class period where we got to visit Callahan Creek, we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted our campaigns to look like, and we felt pretty reassured about our somewhat wild idea after him speaking about REI and just talking about doing the unthinkable. Big ideas get people talking, and sometimes the most risky ones produce the most results. So with that being said, We're aware that this might resonate some negative attitudes, so we'd like to put a positive spin after the week without your U. It will feature a Union Appreciation Day, and this day will include a giveaway of free crunchy chicken cheddar wraps as a way to show appreciation to the students for putting up with that previous week of closures. In order to receive this free wrap, all they have to do is show a Snapchat of them using the Kansas Memorial Union geofilter. This geofilter will run that week prior and kind of serve as some good branding for the union as well. And in order for students to be aware of this particular giveaway, we plan on generating hype primarily on Twitter. After tweeting something similar to this tweet right here that we've provided, we hope that accounts as like Free Food at KU will retweet and help spread this message. With 3,500 followers on KU Union's Twitter and over 8,000 on the Free Food at KU, which, by the way, if you're not following them, they retweet out every single thing that's free on campus for that day, so that's fun. We think that this will create quite the turnout. What we hope this week and the previous week overall accomplishes is not only students appreciating their union and realizing its value on campus, but also as a way for the union to show love and appreciation back to their students.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I think what I would miss the most, what I'm going to miss the most at KU is having lunch at the wheel after class. So I just want to wrap things up by saying thank you to the union directors, to David, and to our class, because we really feel like our group embodied the work hard, play hard method. We had a ton of fun putting together this campaign, and it kind of showed us that campaigns doesn't have to be stressful, that you can work just as hard and have just as much fun while you're doing it. So we just had like a really good time getting to know each other. We had a lot of food and late nights, and so we just want to say thanks, and we wanted to leave you guys with this quote from the former VP of the student body. This is kind of how we would hope people would feel about the union when they leave after our campaign. So she said, "The union is critical to the KU college experience. Student Senate would not be able to serve students. We would not be able to help each student organization to use the funding that is vital to their ability to bring students together outside of the classroom." And now we're just going to open it up for some Q&A.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate the effort and thought put into this. I guess my question, and maybe others, I'll pass the mic along, but my first question is to the issue of linking all our various areas together. Is that an ongoing campaign need we need to keep in mind? And, you know, we have, I don't know, approximately, 22 operations just in food service alone on campus. How do we manage that? What's the most effective way to go about that?
Is that something, is that working?
Just talk loud.
Okay, it's okay, sorry, thank you.
It's an exchange.
Thank you. So when you say all of the areas, are you talking about like underground, DeBruce, bookstore?
You indicated there might be some greater connection with people if we were able to emphasize their connection one to the other, I think.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought about how we do that in some effective fashion, or it just strikes me at some point it gets unwieldy, and I didn't know if you've given more thought to that.
I think some of what we put together with all of the entities, even just talking to one of my friends, I was kind of, divulging some of our ideas, and I talked about the crunchy chicken cheddar wraps, and he was like, well, you can just go to the underground to get that. And I was like, exactly, you were a student for 5 years and you didn't even realize that you guys actually oversee all of that. And I think with a lot of our research, we saw time and time again, well, I don't use the union. Well, you do, but you just don't. I think that there's just a disconnect with students to realize all of these things are ran by you. And we think that if that connect was there and that they did realize that those things were ran by you, it would be a little bit easier to say, yeah, okay, we do need a hub, a central station for you, a nicer renovation.
Just to add on to that, I think it would also help promote a yes on the referendum as well, just because if students understand that, the union does oversee all of these things, and if there is no institution, like a physical institution, to take care of all of this business and kind of take care and, be almost like the homemaker for all of these these services that KU provides, people are going to be more likely to vote yes and, support that kind of push forward.
Did you all talk about, sorry, so going on that vein, did you talk about ideas of how you would connect those together? Because there's so many entities, it's kind of hard to,
Right.
how ideas on how to pull it all together.
So I think that was kind of the point of our Week Without Your U campaign is getting students to understand that a week without your U means a week without the underground, a week without the DeBruce Center. All of these entities that students don't necessarily understand that those are all, provided by the union.
Right, and going off of that, there obviously is a lot of other entities that we could have included in that week, but based off of our research, we felt that those were the ones that needed to be included because those were the ones that students use the most and were aware of being connected to the union, if that makes sense.
I don't want to get too morbid here, but I like the idea, the drama of closing things. I thought that was a really good thought. Do we take it another step? Do we have a funeral? I mean, is that, you laugh, but I mean, is that, how dark should we go in terms of painting these tones?
I think you can go as dark as you want or as dark as you think it will resonate with the students. But then if you do that, I think, it's really critical that you place a lot of emphasis on this Union Appreciation Day. And not only is it a Union Appreciation Day, but students, or the union appreciating the students. I think that's where the emphasis needs to be. If you do decide to go super dark with that week, I love the idea. I think it's funny and kind of it's very creative. But I think if you're going to do that, that needs to be that week after. I don't know if you want to do a week or a Union Appreciation Week or what, but that's something that you should harp on, in my opinion, is to really go after. Actually, kind of David led us in that direction, but saying that the union appreciates its students.
Yeah, but it was, a positive spin on it because we knew that, it would cause some commotion the week before. And, like Sydney said, that's not a terribly bad thing in this case, at this point, what can you do? You got to do something that's going to get the attention of the students. And we just really wanted to make it, because students might see that as a negative thing. And we needed to bounce back with something positive. And so that was our idea with that week following.
One more thing. I think you could do a lot with that week, too. We just had the one idea, with the free crunchy chicken cheddar wraps, but I think that with more planning and thinking about maybe what does that week later look like, I think that could be pretty impactful as far as being positive afterwards. And then moving forward with, obviously, kind of what you guys have done to get the renovation passed anyways. So.
How about a round of applause for our...
Thank you.
Can I unplug that?
Do this first. Yeah, you can. All right, for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and transition to our next team. And if you know your history, you know what team that is, right? 1912, next Jayhawk came in 1920, right? For the sake of time, we're going to limit questions just to the client, so I appreciate the interest from the crowd, and there'll be opportunity in the intermission to talk with the students and expand on their ideas. We'll let this group go ahead and get set up. I don't know if I can provide entertainment in the interim while they're plugging in.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a warning that a picture of my family might pop up because that's been happening when we've been practicing. But it's a good picture. Which one is it?
HDMI.
Oh no, it didn't.
Testing.
It still might.
Hold that thought. There they are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maddie Umali, and I am the presentation director for the 1920 Jayhawks. Just wanted to say how excited we are to present our strategies and tactics to you today. It hasn't been too long since we last saw you, but a lot has happened, and we're really excited to show you what we've been working on all semester. But first, I'd like to say how much we loved working with the union this semester. I think I can speak for my entire team when I say not only did we learn so much about our union and university, but we actually grew a deep, fond appreciation for our union that we want every student on this campus to feel. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to our account coordinator, Ray, and she's going to outline for you guys more specifically what you'll be seeing today.
Hi, everyone. Like Maddie said, my name is Ray, and I have the privilege of being the account coordinator this semester. I'd like to go ahead and introduce the rest of the team, though, however. This is Lindsay, our marketing director, Dylan, our research director, Nicole, creative director, and Brooklyn, our planning director. Although we all had different positions this semester, I do want to note that we all tackled each objective together as a whole, and everybody played a very vital part in the success of this campaign. So I'd like to begin by talking a bit about our journey this semester. When we first found out the union was to be our client, we were both excited and a bit intimidated. We were very excited because we've spent 4 years on this campus, and we've loved it here. So having an on-campus client, we knew that we were going to be passionate about it. We were a little bit intimidated, however, because we knew that if this went downhill and it possibly wasn't very successful, we'd be seen walking down Jayhawk Boulevard and there would be nowhere to hide from you all. So, on a serious note, working on this campaign this semester gave us a very real taste of what it's going to be like when we graduate and go out into the real marketing and advertising industry. We had some successes and we had some failures throughout the semester, but we wouldn't have changed the dynamic for anything. So today we are so excited to present to you everything that we've been working on. We're going to go over 4 objectives today with you, and all of it is based off of the research that we conducted earlier on in the semester. So before I go any further, I'm going to hand things to Brooklyn, who's going to give you a little research refresher.
Okay, so we started with secondary research, and this taught us a lot about the history of the union and how much students before us loved this building. They not only garnered up enough support to get it built, but also to restore it after the fire in 1970. So then we wanted to get a sense of how students today felt about the union. Through our survey, interviews, and focus groups, we found that students feel a little differently today. They do value the union and the services it provides, as this is where they get their books, attend events, get food, but they're simply just using the space and they don't feel an emotional connection towards it. So we asked them where they did like to spend their downtime, and the places they felt the most comfortable and welcome were either the places where they had class or the nearest building that had coffee and a study space. This is because this is where their friends were and their peers. When we asked them where they got their information from to go to events, they said things like the UDK and the KU News Twitter account, but their most trusted source was their classmates and their friends. They wanted to hear from their peers about things that were going on around campus, and we saw how important this was in the field visits at K-State and Missouri. Their referendums were mostly led by students and started by students, and the students not only led these, but also did a really great job of getting students involved and talking about that. And so now I'll hand it over to Dylan to talk about the 3 main themes of the research.
Okay, so for our campaign, we've contextualized some of the patterns we gathered from our research, as well as a post-referendum meeting with our client. By doing this, we ensure that our ideas are organized, that they're intentional, and they keep our overall goal for this campaign in mind. So we begin with culture. I'm sure everyone has his or her own definition of culture and what it means to them, but when we talk about culture in the context of the Kansas Union and the University of Kansas, we're talking about the social environment on and off campus. Understanding the student culture helps us to understand and explain behaviors. Through our primary and secondary research, we found that the campus culture was not necessarily being represented by the union. It doesn't have the natural lighting, flexible spaces, or entertainment that were industry trends, nor did it have the pool of enticing events or unique services that other buildings didn't already provide at a closer proximity. Another important thing to note about culture is that it's always changing, and we want the union to strive to be adaptable and on the forefront of these changes, even creating cultural change where it can. By understanding the campus culture and responding to its present state, an emotional connection can begin to be made. This emotional connection is the key to turning the union into a destination rather than a stopping point. As we talk about later on in the presentation, it is important that this emotional connection be made very early in a student's time on campus. The old adage says it is easier to maintain customers than acquire new ones. This remains true in this case, but most brands don't have the luxury of new customers being required to step on in their establishment. Creating an emotional connection is obviously not something that can be created in a short amount of time. However, it is also not a short-term accomplishment. If it is strong enough, it can be passed down generation to generation. And lastly, the last of our themes involves turning that time to understand and react to campus culture and the effort to create more than just a transactional connection between students and the union into a return on that investment. This is where all of that culminates into creating brand advocates, specifically student ones, as their advocacy can translate directly into a yes or no vote. I think Joe Chernoff, Vice President of Marketing at Insight Squared, said it best when he said, "There's a singular tipping point for marketers, and it happens the moment its customers begin to see themselves as a connection of the brand, as an extension of the brand, sharing their experiences with others, cheering new products, even defending the company in times of crisis."
All right, so keeping in mind these three themes that we found throughout our research, when we heard the vote of the referendum, we had a lot of discussions about which way we wanted to take our campaign. So this is our goal of not only our campaign, but the future of the union. This is an overall goal that helps make the best of the space that we have now, and also helps make future student votes or referendum votes easier to pass. It takes the feedback from the research and translates it into this overall goal that we've then broken down into 4 objectives after that. Our goal is to take the union into a community space that is more than transactional needs. These are our 4 objectives, or the 4 focuses of our goal. So we want to target prospective and new students and really create that emotional bond early on with the building. We love your student ambassadors program, but we want to increase the responsibilities and also the diversity of the program. Our 3rd is union events and foot traffic. We want to increase the events and also then the foot traffic. Also, social media, amp up the social media presence and engagement of the union. We felt like these were very important topics and improvements that would help us reach our overall goal. And now all of my 4 team members will break down each objective.
So our first objective is targeting prospective and new students. The Kansas Union is one of the first buildings that new and prospective students enter on campus, whether that be for orientation or their first campus tour. And so it's really important to make a lasting impression on them by making them feel welcome and valued during their first visit, week, or year on campus. So our objective here is to create a union brand awareness for new and prospective students that will stick with them throughout their time at KU. By building this positive relationship with new and prospective students, the union will become the go-to place for their on-campus needs. We came up with a series of tactics to obtain this objective, but the one we want to touch on today is reviewing the language used in regards to the union. We suggest that the union make sure they're using a singular voice throughout all channels of communication, whether that be student union ambassadors or promotional materials. One way to attain this singular voice is to also work with other entities on campus, such as admissions, making sure that tour guides and orientation leaders are speaking and presenting the union as more than a place to buy things or have meetings. Changing impressions is essential to rebranding the union, especially in the minds of these new students who will hopefully be here for 4 years and will be key influencers on campus and possibly for a future renovation. So we strongly encourage ambassadors to speak strongly about community and study spaces, because the language should reassure students that this is more than just a building and more than just a place to get coffee.
As Lindsay and Brooklyn said, we absolutely love your Student Union Ambassador program. And we were so excited when we found out that you guys do have plans to expand that program. We truly believe that it's the best way for the union to advocate for itself. And as we saw through the craziness of the referendum and the elections process, right now in our campus climate, student voice is critical, especially coming from the union. So we think that the best way to get this strong, credible student voice is through your guys' Student Union Ambassador program. It's a great way to start transforming students' beliefs on the union away from that corporation administration building into the building that we all know the union to be, which is a building and organization that meets student needs. And we have a few ways of getting there. First, we strongly encourage you guys to expand the responsibilities of the Student Union Ambassadors. The Student Union Ambassadors were so active during the Redo Your You campaign, and we do not want that momentum to die. We want to see them out year-round, tabling on Wesco, tabling at the union, visiting student organizations, visiting University 101 classes. The point of all of that is that so that the student body on this campus can physically see the presence of Student Union Ambassadors. We want them to start making a connection in their mind that when they think of the union, they picture Student Union Ambassadors. And when they think of Student Union Ambassadors, they think of the union, so that the union starts to transform its image into one of students. Secondly, we would love to see the union expand the recruitment process for the Student Union Ambassador program. It obviously makes sense that when you guys started this program, you reach to people who already are advocates for the union. So those are students that are involved in union programming, already are active on social media about the union. But this university is so large and so diverse, and we really want the Student Union Ambassador program to reflect and mirror that diversity. So we want to see Student Union Ambassadors that are from every professional school, every major, every walk of life, so that every student on this campus can find something in common with one of those ambassadors and see a little bit of themselves in them, and see why they love the union and then why themselves should love the union. So tying it all back together, we really want to create the Student Union Ambassador program to be really robust, so that eventually you guys do have that critical student voice that's needed.
And as we've also mentioned, it's so important for students to have an emotional connection to this space if they are going to find value in it. And if they find value in the union, then a future referendum is most likely to pass. So when we were tackling the objective of increasing union foot traffic, we had to think about things like, what do students really care about and what do they genuinely find interest in? The union does a wonderful job already of hosting events here, but we think that this can be further developed. Students care about socializing and spending time doing things that they find fulfilling. However, we're also very price conscious, and we value coming to things that we can either afford or that are free. So we came up with a few tactics that we thought would be fun ideas for the union to try. A food truck fest or a concert in the fall to kick off the semester would be a great way to introduce the vibrant culture of KU to new students, and also just get people excited about the new upcoming year. Additionally, a monthly fitness class that could be led by rec employees, just to give them some more practice with whatever their training is in, and also get students to come to the union for a time of de-stressing, because we want them to feel comfortable here. In order to create an incentive for students to want to come to these events, and not only just come to the events, but to spend time here, and hang out with friends here and whatnot, we came up with the U-Points concept, which is an application on your phone. This works very similar to Pocket Points. And the way it would work is a student would download U-Points and they would come to the union, whether they're coming here to get a coffee or they're coming here to meet their friends or study. Whatever the reason, they upload the app and they log in, and the app would track the amount of time that they spend at the union. So however long they're at the union, they are receiving points for that amount of time, and then those points can be rewarded at any of the union services. So in the market or the bookstore or getting a roastery coffee. For example, we thought, okay, you have 5 points, you can get a free tea at the roastery. So these are just a few tactics that we've mentioned today. Obviously, more detail is going to be in the plans book, but we thought that they were important to highlight for you all.
Okay, and for our last objective, we wanted to tackle social media. Because the majority of KU students are millennials and Generation Z, we know that they use social media to interact with others and also to access information, which means that they expect the governments or the organizations they're in contact with to be equally savvy at doing so. So what we thought would be that a successful social media campaign would increase the brand recognition for new and potential students while also increasing the current students' brand loyalty. Social media is basically just a communication channel that, when properly used, can lead to richer and better communications between the students and also the union. One of the things that came up during our focus group was that students like to be communicated with through social media and email. So we wanted to create a consistent campaign throughout all the different platforms, which would be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now we wanted to include Snapchat. Okay, so these platforms would not only be used to communicate different events and updates that are happening at the union, but also to potentially answer people's questions, and also like have little activities that are guided through social media. For example, we could have like a union scavenger hunt through social media, or like a simple contest where you could win a jersey or something like that. What we did, this is the GF filter that we developed for this campaign. This has been live since 5 p.m., so all of you that have Snapchat can actually access it right now. And the purpose of this is just to so students can engage with it, but also so the brand recognition gets out there. And, oh yeah, we'll do it later. All right.
So this is a complete list of all of our tactics. Notice that they all fall under one of the 4 main objectives. Kind of reiterating that there's a continuity throughout our whole plan. It all leads back to the research that we have from students about their experience here on the Hill at KU, and even more specifically, the union.
Again, we want the ideas that we have presented to be full of purpose. It is easy to plan events and give out free stuff, but if it doesn't tie itself back to a greater goal, even the most well-intentioned attempts at connecting with your audience may fall short. We presented these themes at the beginning, but would like to reiterate their importance as you continue to make decisions for the union. A recognition, understanding, and ability to adapt to campus culture, leading to the creation of more meaningful emotional connections between the union's past, present, and future patrons. And as you look to decisions that will require student approval, making sure you have created those brand advocates that will support your endeavors, because this building and all its history is an extension of them. We'd like to wrap this up by thanking you guys. We'd like to thank all of you guys for being here, all of you guys in the audience, anybody that happens to be watching on the internet. We'd also like to specifically thank our client representative, Lisa, JJ, and David, as well as and the rest of our client, for allowing us to take on this project and for their support. We'd also like to thank our instructor, David Johnston, for his guidance and expertise, and for the freedom he has given us throughout this project. And before we open up to questions, we'd actually want to show you guys the Snapchat filter, if you guys are photo ready.
I don't think I need to say this, but big smiles.
Working earlier.
Oh.
There you go.
Whoops.
It's fine, just do that.
No, it's good, I got it.
Yeah, if anybody has their phone out right now, you should check it out.
No,
Yeah,
I got
it's
it.
definitely live. Obviously, we took that picture
I
in
got
the
it, I got it, I got it, I
presentation.
got it.
There we go. Oh.
Ah! All right.
There we go.
Ready?
Super easy.
1, 2, 3. We're saying rock chalk. 1, 2, 3.
Rock chalk.
That's just you guys. And there it is.
It's just the roof. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Oh, questions?
All right, with that fiasco over, we'd like to open it up for questions.
Well, again, thanks again for a totally different take on our situation. I question on you talk about a singular voice. As you look at this, does that involve us one? I assume that has implications in terms of writing some sort of script so that people can talk in a singular voice. And two, what does that entail in terms of training? Because you talk about a fairly sizable ambassador group. How do you all approach that question?
So we had this kind of conversation with David during one of our meetings. We were talking about the KU News Twitter, so the official account of the university. And I made a comment once. I was like, oh, they're so sassy. I love it. And David goes, that's the thing. Are all of their tweets sassy, or are all of their tweets not sassy? It's creating a personality, really, as well as a voice. So it's not writing a script, but it's having one person kind of oversee social media specifically, instead of, you can have students work on it, but not letting them have free reign over it, and kind of editing what message comes across. We talked about it in the language audit a lot too, so that kind of goes in with it, is making sure there's a consistent message, a consistent tone to the social media, as well as promotional materials.
And when that comes to, because I think your question included the language audit with ambassadors and such. When it comes to working with admissions and stuff, making sure that the language being used by anybody that's giving a tour or anybody that's talking about the union as one of their official responsibilities, is that they're talking about it in a way that that resounds to the effect of that the union isn't just, again, transactional. We've kind of harped on that, but that it's not transactional. That this is a place where students live and breathe and work and play and all kinds of stuff. So, and that of course ties into everything. You want to have an overarching strategy, so you're not, pulling from different strategies there.
So first a statement. Nicole, can we have the Snapchat filter?
For a price.
We already pay her, so.
Yeah, I am technically a union employee, so.
Yeah. And then I'm curious, a lot of what you guys were saying about the events and that welcome piece really resonates with me, with especially the programming board. And I'm curious if you think that should be sort of what their role is and all of that. Should this be something that they get to do what they're doing, and we do this as a different union initiative, some other events in conjunction with what they're doing, or expand upon, or what that looks like? You guys think we should take the next path? Because I think that's something that we've definitely talked about, is that line between what the programming board is doing and what we plan.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think reviewing all of the union events right now and making sure that every single event ties back to a student need or a student want is really important. Because if you find that there's a gap there for one of your events, maybe then it should be reconsidered if you guys are spending time and money working on that event. But additionally, yes, I think that people are excited for new events, especially when they're promoted the right way. And this would be a great opportunity for the union to start doing things and maybe messaging it, start the messaging out as we're doing this because through all of this mayhem this semester, we heard you guys and we know that this is actually what you want. So we are providing these events as a response.
I also think, and we wrote a bit about this in our plans book, but I think that it's going to require more research. I think that ambassadors, this could be a responsibility we chatted about, but ambassadors could go to classrooms and just genuinely ask simply what people want to be seeing in the union. Hey, what's something fun that could happen this semester that would get you guys engaged here? Simple as that. I think that that's going to result in a lot of really helpful answers.
No real question, but I appreciate the research on the Union Ambassadors Program. I think Michelle and I, we put that together this semester with that group, and so it's great to hear that what an effect it had on all of you. And I think we're excited to move forward on that. So thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Well done. Yep. Okay, let's welcome up our next group. What are we on, 23? All right.
Are we setting a timer up here? Yep, we're all on one side. Okay. Oh, I haven't plugged it in yet, sorry.
Hold on a second. There we go.
That was the wrong way. This is good right here. That's what I did last time.
Hi everyone, we're the 1923 Jayhawks and we're really glad you've all joined us this evening. We've really enjoyed working with the union staff this semester, and a special thanks especially,
Sorry guys, just keep talking.
to David, Lisa, and JJ for your cooperation throughout our project. We've learned a lot over the course of this semester and we're excited to present our vision for the union with you all. And now I'd like to introduce our team. I'm Ann Lears, the Marketing Communications Director.
I'm Ashlyn Yumpanen, and I'm the Planning Director.
I'm Courtney Cody, and I'm the Presentation Director.
I'm Liza Clough, and I'm the Account Coordinator.
My name is Amber Sim, and I'm the Research Director.
I'm Brittany Maddox, and I'm the Creative Director.
So the Kansas Memorial Union was established in 1926 to provide a place for students to enjoy social and academic experience. Over the years, it's been used by the KU community to experience the variety of services from dining to entertainment. Additionally, it strives to contribute to student learning, recruitment, retention, and connection in a context of community exchange. The foundational identity, however, has not been able to keep up with the rapidly changing needs of students. So the goal of our campaign is to reestablish the feelings that students first had when the union began and to make it feel like home again for current and future Jayhawks. Although Read Your You was a catchy slogan, feedback has proven it was not representative of the Kansas Memorial Union. So in focus groups, we heard comments from students such as, "We don't even call it the U, we would rather call it the union." So students maybe felt disconnected and couldn't relate to the campaign. So, because of this, we propose a new brand identity for the renovation project that includes a new name, logo, and marketing approach. So this will cause students to see the renovation as a positive addition to the campus, and rebranding has the capacity to shift the student body's perception of the renovation.
Let me give you the starting lineup.
Okay, so we're going to take a different shift from the past campaigns groups and tell you about a campaign that we would propose that would be similar to Read Your You. And like Ann just said, just kind of give you a different feedback on like different strategies and marketing tactics. So, as you can see, our new campaign is the New Union. The name showcases that students are the focus and the center of this campaign. From the beginning of the campaign to the end, we really want students to understand that this is their union. We want them to realize that they do have a voice and a really big role in the renovation process. The primary focus of our campaign is to establish a personal connection between the referendum and the students. The play on words, New Union, allows students to picture themselves experiencing the new and improved Kansas Union. The new union's mission is to create a quality environment where students feel comfortable in a setting that promotes academic excellence and relaxation. By receiving the vote to renovate the Kansas Union, the dream of developing a modernized and useful facility that feels like home to students on campus is possible. The target audience for New Union is the University of Kansas's student body as a whole. However, we do recommend segmenting the target audiences into 3 specific categories. For this, we have chosen freshman students, involved students, and uninvolved students. In addition, we propose a separate vote for the referendum. We would like for the vote to stand alone from the Student Senate elections. It was evident in the Redo Your U campaign that the union staff dealt with challenges during the previous campaigning season. They faced obstacles such as Student Senate politics, coalitions, and endorsement concerns. By removing the referendum from the Student Senate ballots, opposition from student coalitions is less likely. The focus of the referendum should focus, the focus of the vote should focus solely on the referendum for the Kansas Union. The goal for the new union campaign is to pass the vote by the end of this 6-month period.
So throughout our research project, we found that students often commented on how that they rely on their peers for recommendations. This key finding was the center of our campaign strategy and why we wanted to focus on student union representatives. We wanted to call them student representatives also to not conflict with the student ambassadors for the campus as a whole. The purpose of the Student Union Representatives program will be to take influential students and use them to advocate and educate other students about the new union campaign. By encompassing a large, diverse group of students for the program, the new union campaign will create better channels of communication with a variety of students. Overall, the representatives will serve as a liaison between the Kansas Union and the student body, thus giving a voice and providing guidance to other students. So on a basic level, what makes up a student union representative? A student representative should show passion for the University of Kansas and their fellow Jayhawks. Their values should align with the mission of the Kansas Union. They should possess strong leadership qualities. They should have an in-depth knowledge of campus trends, and they should know how to effectively communicate information to their peers. These qualities are necessary because our goal is to use these representatives to relate the message of the campaign to students in a different and interesting way. To ensure the largest reach, the diverse representatives will use their unique backgrounds to provide a voice that adequately reflects the student body. As a result, the new union campaign will establish stronger, more personal points of contact. Through the recruiting process, the Student Representatives Program will gather 30 students. A successful recruitment team will embody a combination of professional schools and different organizations at the University of Kansas. The following steps of the recruitment process will ensure that the most qualified candidates represent the Kansas Union.
So the first step in recruiting these student union representatives would be to distribute applications on campus. Physically, we would like these to be distributed in the professional schools such as Capital Federal and Stauffer Flint and others. We would also like to distribute them at tabling events such as like tabling on Wesco, tabling at the Union, and at events that are hosted by the Union such as Hawk Week, which specifically would target freshmen, which is part of our target audience. And we would also like to distribute the application online on Rock Chalk Central, which is sort of a hub for all of the student organizations here on campus. And we would also like to link them in all of our social media posts. For example, here is an Instagram post that we created, just kind of a mock-up. It's encouraging students to apply to be a student representative. And we decided to use Instagram as our recruitment tool for social media because number one, students, based off our research, students prefer Instagram over other social media platforms. And also the visual appeal of Instagram allows students to visualize themselves in this role. Another example, a campaign flyer. This is what we would like to distribute around campus. It would be posted around the union. This is something that you put on the bathroom stalls at Anschutz, everywhere you can think of, just to kind of get people aware and get people to go to the link below and see and just check out the application. So after you recruit these student representatives, we would like to select 5 of the about 30 student union representatives to be team captains. These team captains will act as liaisons between the union faculty and the other student representatives. They will delegate responsibilities and tasks to other student representatives, and they will also facilitate team meetings and organize marketing strategies and tactics throughout the campaign. After all of these students have been recruited and you got all your student union representatives, we would like to sort of build a training session which ensures that they have the proper training and communication tactics to effectively communicate with the student body about the campaign.
So, the new union campaign, we decided to gradually happen over 3 phases, over a 6-month period. So each of these phases has a different goal with different tactics that has a different message every single time. These 3 phases we decided should start immediately because this is still a hot topic. We thought that maybe redoing it in August 2017 wouldn't be such a bad idea. So when we introduce it in the fall of 2017, this will aim to pass the referendum hopefully around February, right before Student Senate comes around. We believe that the campaign should start as soon as possible because this will still keep it relevant, but the way we are shifting the message will definitely help incorporate those student voices that they felt were not heard. And also it will prevent things such as cost and designs like that to still stay relevant for the time period. So each of these phases has an attainable goal to help measure how the campaign is doing. These goals will be discussed later in each of our phases, but this is just an overview. So our first phase talks a lot about engagement, and as you can see, this is from August to October. Each of the phases will primarily be implemented by student ambassadors so that it creates the voice that this is coming from students, that this is student-led. So this is one of the most important parts of the campaign because this will primarily focus on gathering student opinions and really getting out there and talking to the students. A clear understanding of what students want to be seen will come from online and in-person feedback such as surveys. Online surveys can be distributed through things like Blackboard or Rock Chalk Central, but then also we could give in-class surveys by having student representatives going to classrooms and leaving boxes in the front of the room, which is a really popular method. So keeping in mind that phase 1 places a major emphasis on engagement, social media efforts are tailored to engage students for asking their opinions. So for example, the posts on Instagram, which is a little small, Twitter and Facebook will all give a link that's going to lead directly into our survey. Specifically, this one on Twitter, we really engage students to retweet in order to win or incentivize. And the reason we're doing this is in order to increase the reach that the new union has the potential of doing. Another thing for the student representatives is that they will be able to retweet this as well and get more information across multiple markets. And then lastly, we decided that Facebook is still very relevant and that it's really good for engaging with people because if they have the questions, that is where they are going to post the longest, and that's where you're going to really be able to guide them, to give them references and point them in other directions to seek information.
Okay, so phase 2 focuses on the promotion and the awareness of the union renovation design plans that were created based on the insights gained from phase 1. So the union faculty, the union faculty and student union representatives will collaborate with the architecture team to create, to develop the best possible plan with the student preferences in mind and within the reasonable budget that they're willing to pay for. The student union representatives will continue to use social media to interact with and encourage engagement upon students with the new union campaign. And hopefully by the end of this period, we will gain 500 plus followers on each of the social media platforms. But okay, these are examples of the social media renderings that we'd like to use during it. And it's basically, it's spreading awareness. So this one is to get people to come to an information session, but in doing so, they get a free Chipotle burrito in return. So it's like a benefit on both sides. Something that's not in the PowerPoint, but really heavily touched on in the book is like experiential marketing tactics, which I feel is very crucial to tie both of them into it. So you can go do tabling and have the same thing, like follow this account to get a free slice of pizza, something like that. But you could go even further and do a scavenger hunt that leads them back to the union, or just making something that students really want to be a part of, but also gets your point across in the same way. And the third phase is a call to action. And it's really just to it's continuing the spread of the awareness throughout campus, through social media, and keeping the personalized message from the student union representatives. But it's really important for them to tell the student body that if they want to see their ideas come to life, they need to vote, and they need to vote to pass the referendum. Yeah, and it all comes down to the final vote, and that's really just the end goal of the phase 3 and all throughout all the phases. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we prepared a very tentative and flexible budget just because we kind of had a wide range. But basically the budget here is kind of to execute the development of the strategies that we've shown you in this presentation. And we've believed that by using a rough number like this, it would be able to successfully promote and, lead to the passing of the referendum. So as you can see here, to support our campaign recommendations, we suggest a budget roughly of $20,800. This budget will take into account the cost of food, giveaway items, stickers, buttons, t-shirts, flyers and posters, and sponsored social media posts. So we want to leave you with the message that through the new union campaign, we want to restore the union and make it feel like a destination and home to future and current Jayhawks. And then thank you guys again. We really appreciate everything, and we'll just open it up to question and answer.
So your group went specifically towards continuing the campaign versus just how do we brand the union, and so you're encouraging us to continue it right now, and that the sentiment is not. I guess my concern is that if we would continue this and potentially go for another referendum so early, you all feel like that would be a benefit to us. Maybe talk a little bit more about that.
So one of the things we really gathered was that a lot of the students felt like their voice wasn't heard, even though no matter how many times you tell students, like, we want your opinions, like, you really just have to put it right in front of their face. So creating that really long extended phase 1 is all about interacting and engaging with students, which is similar to some other which could be its own campaign on its own. But we really felt by rebranding this and immediately taking another stab at it, remaking the name, you're taking away those negative connotations that might have been with the old campaign, any opposition or anything like that, and we're just immediately starting over. We're saying, we get that you guys didn't really get this before, you didn't feel connected to it, and now this is what we want to do. If you guys help us, we'll help you.
I think something that was a little different in our focus group as well is that we had a lot of seniors, and a majority of them were kind of like, hey, why not? Like, it's $50, we would have a brand new union, and it would be something that we could come back to. So I think from having like the older students' perspective, it was something like, this would be how we would leave a legacy at the University of Kansas. This is something that we can come back to and see. And so I think something that we thought that would be very beneficial to keeping the kind of campaign alive and the referendum going would be to kind of showcase that, okay, like we can still leave this legacy. And I think Amber touched on it in the in the presentation, but just with the value of money, like each day money increases. So if we were to postpone this campaign 5 years from now, $45 million might become 80 or 100. Like who knows what the money might end up being. And as it would be like a loan, interest rates, like everything that kind of goes into the logistics of what kind of David warned us not really to get into is something that we really did take into consideration and felt that this would be the best possible outcome to do kind of right away, just so the value of money and, you know, certain circumstances like that would be the least affected because of the KU art and everything like that, saying like money is the biggest problem. This would kind of keep money on a lower-ish end.
What I would also say too is I think it's important to do it so soon after because it is showing the students that we hear you, we're listening, and we're reacting right away to what you wanted versus seeming like we're retracting into like, okay, maybe we won't, we'll just try the same thing later. I think it's immediately reacting and showing students that like, yes, we hear you and we think you're important, so.
I'm impressed with the sadistic tendencies of this group, and I appreciate the fact that you were able to put it in 3 phases on how we proceeded. That was really helpful. The other thing I would observe about this group, you know, it seems shameless, the Hey You poster. I thought that was, when I saw that, I thought, wow, what a wonderful concept. So I thank you for being able to make that leap from your logo to that come on. So that was very nice. I guess my other question, just briefly, is you really think we can generate the numbers we need on a standalone campaign? Because that was the other thing that I think we struggle with. Can we get the 2,400 votes out there without the election?
I think something that Thomas's group touched on with the Kansas State University and their union, like the whole campaign encompassed for students, by students, or by students for students, whichever way it was. But like by having our, like as you could see in our presentation, student union representatives was the bulk. Like that is the bread and butter. They are going to be the ones that will really be the spearheaders of this campaign. And so having, we said 30, and then having 5 team captains, like each will individually be able to kind of focus on one part. I think that will be where you gain the followers. Having students go into classrooms, having students, you know, making sure that they are known on campus. That will allow you to associate a face to the name of the campaign, and that will really get students kind of engaged in what's going on. And I think also everybody loves free food. Everybody loves free items. We really put like a lot of effort into like doing the Chipotle. Like we made food our biggest budget on the whole pie chart that we had. Like we love food. And I think too, like tabling at Wesco Beach, we want that to be something where, you know, half the time people will put headphones in and like walk by as fast as they can. Like we want it to be where you have like a boom box and you have pizza and you have, you know, students who are there just gathering. Like we want it to be a warm and welcoming environment, which is essentially what we want the union to kind of relate to in the end. And so I think if you do put all of the factors that we have put together, and obviously we elaborate a lot more in the plans book, I think that it's something that really could be attainable.
Okay, so like with the student union representatives, we'll be posting from like our own social handles, but they will be too. So it's 30 other students that are reaching a whole other audience with their own personal channels, maintaining that personalized effect throughout the entire time. So I feel like with the new union campaign and their social following, and then the Kansas Memorial Union also retweeting it or whatever, and their personal side of it, it just reaches a lot wider of an audience, and a lot more students are able to relate with it, and they're like, oh, this guy's like so excited about this, I kind of want to be too, and then they get more involved in knowing what else is going on campus to get them more excited too.
And that definitely goes back into the whole, from our research, we saw that peer recommendations were the biggest thing. Having 30 kids that are all from different professional schools, school organizations, even a mix, what we talked about was a mix of in-state and out-of-state, you know, like, because I meet someone that's from out of state, maybe we want the union to be our home. Like, we want to have this be a central gathering location where we all feel comfortable and included and make it our new home.
in the plans books also we kind of touched on like, you know, Greek life, this organizations and athletes. Like, I know before it was maybe something that we didn't want to touch on student athletes because we didn't want them to think like, you know, we were putting too much on them. But by showing that diversity and including, you know, kind of key people on campus like that, that's something too that will also insanely maximize reach. So that's something too that we put in the plans book.
Any more questions?
All right. Thanks, guys. We're going to take a brief 10-minute intermission. We'll be back here at 7:35 sharp to hear our next group, Team 1929. So 10 minutes.
So hello and welcome back. We are Limestone Innovations and we're really excited to share with you our campaign tonight. So as an agency, we were really inspired by the history of the University of Kansas and the Rock Chalk Chant, as you heard, to select the name Limestone Innovations. And also as a team, we strive to build foundations for dynamic brands. I am Morgan Shekel and I'm the planning director.
I am Rachel North and I am the account coordinator. I'm Victoria Darden and I'm the presentation director.
I'm Emily Kuola, and I'm the creative director.
I am Brett Hof, and I am the marketing communications director.
I am Ashley Grotwick, and I am the research director.
All right, so almost 4 months ago in this very room, we were approached by the Kansas Memorial Union to create a campaign that would address the Redo Your U referendum. As many of you may know, this was not a typical campaigns class in the sense that this vote did not occur until mid-April, which was well over half of our semester. And ultimately, the vote failed, as we know. And then we were tasked with the opportunity to create a campaign that would help refocus the purpose of the union. And now we're just really excited to share our ideas with you. So our campaign is Your Union, Your Legacy. Through research that we conducted, we learned that students view their relationship with the union as more of a transactional one, in the sense that they come here to buy something from the bookstore or to grab a bite to eat. However, our campaign strives to build an emotional connection between those University of Kansas students and the union. So then hopefully we can stop that shuffling in and out of the union and instead encourage them to stay for community building events. We also feel it is very essential to reframe the narrative of the union as a more student-activated center.
We ask you to take a moment to think to yourself, when you hear the name, the University of Kansas, what comes to mind? What makes KU unique? The aim of our campaign is to position the union as the cornerstone of student life at KU, as a place that instantly comes to mind when thinking about what defines KU. There are 3 overarching goals that help define our campaign, Your Union, Your Legacy. The first being to reposition the union in the eyes of University of Kansas students as the place to be. Our first objective for Goal 1 is to instill a positive connotation in the minds of University of Kansas students about the Kansas Union. Currently, the campus climate at KU is divisive. This demonstrates a need for a place where students can come together to unify and celebrate diversity. To help foster this sense of diversity, we recommend the union display images throughout the union that are reflective of the diverse student body. We also recommend the union strengthen their partnership with the Office of Multicultural Affairs to host regular gatherings and discussions. Additionally, to help reframe the union as the place to be for social gatherings, we recommend the union host a number of interactive events, one of which being scavenger hunts. Scavenger hunts would be centered around celebrating the rich history of KU. Students would be able to compete in teams to search for historical aspects of the union and KU. Currently, we feel the union is underutilizing the robust history of KU. Through our research, we found that many students come to KU because they feel a connection with the university and its traditions. Our campaign, one of the key elements of it is the use of customized buttons that would be handed out at different events. Here you can see a button that would be handed out at the scavenger hunt. The buttons are designed to be seen as a collector's items, which would encourage students to come to all the events and collect the different buttons throughout the year. Another proposed event would be monthly live music nights. These live music nights would allow students, bands, a place to perform, and also a place for students to come and enjoy free food and music. This type of event, along with the scavenger hunts, would help shift away from that transactional relationship students currently feel they have with the union. All of the proposed events within our campaign would be publicized through the use of social media and also through the expansion of a union ambassador program. Objective 2 for Goal 1 is to elevate the Kansas Union in the minds of University of Kansas students as an integral part of the KU tradition and legacy. We strongly believe that if KU students view the union as an important piece in KU's tradition, they will feel invested in its future and a future referendum. Currently, the union has memorabilia displayed throughout low-traffic areas. We suggest the creation of a Hall of History that would be located on the main floor of the union. This Hall of History would be organized by a student intern who would work in conjunction with the Spencer Museum Archives to host monthly exhibitions. These monthly exhibitions would feature past events at KU, highlight successful alumni members, other university traditions, and even current students who are contributing to that continuation of the great legacy of KU. Throughout the Your Union, Your Legacy campaign, we encourage the use of student interns because we feel that that reinforces the union as a student activated center. Here you can see more buttons that would be used to promote the new union identity. Only a limited number of each of these customized buttons would be produced, and then students would be encouraged to collect one of each throughout the year. And if they are successful, they would be entered into a drawing at the end of the year for a prize. Banners would also be displayed throughout the union using the Your Union, Your Legacy slogan, as well as preserving KU traditions, past, present, and future. We want the union to become the home to KU's legacy. To further build on the legacy aspect of our campaign, the union would partner with the KU Alumni Association to host events and design a union-themed t-shirt. Here, you can see a t-shirt designed using the phrase, "Once a Jayhawk, always a Jayhawk," with the Your Union, Your Legacy slogan on the back. The largest event the union would host during the campaign would be a Traditions Festival. This Traditions Festival would take place during the spring semesters and would have a carnival-like atmosphere where students can compete in games for prizes, some of which including cornhole, basketball pop-a-shot, and many, many more. There would also be a photo booth for students to commemorate the event at. Classic KU basketball games would be shown throughout the union that students could watch, along with visits to the union by the KU Spirit Squad and Big J and Baby J, who would be handing out KU commemorative beads. There will be food and drink provided, and students will also receive a voucher for one free crunchy chicken cheddar wrap, which we all know we love so much. And bands that performed previously at the live music nights would be invited back to perform at the Traditions Festival.
So goal 2 of our campaign is to improve communication between the KU students and the Kansas Union in regards to events and services. Our first objective was to build a go-to news and information site or platform through social media. We feel that this was essential to delete any redundant redo your you social media. And if a future campaign were to occur, we would advise the union to use previously established Kansas Union accounts to disperse information. Social media responsibilities would be dedicated to a full-time staff member who will collaborate with the student intern to offer daily updates of union events and services. Objective 2 of our campaign is to improve the layout of the Kansas Union webpage and increase interconnectivity with Kansas Union social media platforms. Currently, the Kansas Union webpage looks like the majority of KU web pages, as you can see on the screen. We feel it is important that the union distinguish itself with an improved layout of its webpage to create a unique identity. This webpage would highlight the union history and predominantly display social media platforms in an interactive fashion. This more cohesive and unique identity would help to foster a stronger relationship between students and the union.
The final goal of the Your Union, Your Legacy campaign is to engage University of Kansas students in the creation of a future redesign of the Kansas Union. The focus of Goal 3 is to engage the student body. Objective 1 of Goal 3 is to create awareness of an upcoming union renovation among University of Kansas students. A key feature of this goal is the expansion of the Union Ambassadors program. The process of selecting ambassadors will begin in 2017, and they will be involved in promoting and hosting all events within the campaign. It is crucial that these ambassadors are reflective of the demographically diverse student body here at the University of Kansas. The union will also ensure that there are representatives from each school on campus. During the recent referendum, many students felt that their voice was not heard or that the information provided was not transparent. To avoid a similar situation in the future, the Kansas Union Ambassadors will hold information nights where students can come and ask any questions that they have. Ambassadors will also table across campuses and visit classrooms to inform students of how they can get involved with this new referendum. Effectively, the Kansas Union Ambassadors will be the face of the union and again reinforce the idea of the union as a student-activated center. Objective 2 of Goal 3 is to involve the University of Kansas students in the planning and redesign of the Kansas Union. The union should take several steps to ensure students feel their voices are being heard and respected. Because the cost of the initial referendum was considered by many students to be too high, we recommend that budgeting conversations be revisited with ample student input. Additionally, at these information nights, students will engage in brainstorming and planning of a new union design. The design students come up with will then be voted on by the student body. Those plans that they come up with and that are voted on will then be distributed and hung around the union so that students can envision themselves in their new union. Ultimately, we recommend holding a vote separate from the student senate elections, so the focus will be on the union and what it can offer for the students.
So our campaign is going to be centered around two different phases, and the first phase will encompass goals 1 and 2, and we figured that we should do a 2-year span for that first phase from June of 2017 to May of 2019, because we really think it's just essential to have like that much amount of time to be able to reshape the union's narrative in the minds of students. And we believe that the aim of phase 1 is to reset the students' opinions about the union and about the purpose of the union, and to foster meaningful relationships between the union and its students. And phase 2 will include goal 3, and it will begin in August of 2019. And the primary purpose of phase 2 is to really just get the students involved and to create a new union referendum campaign. And the budget for this 2-year plan is $9,506, and phase 1 is going to account for 90% of that budget, with phase 2 being the remaining 10%. And we were given a max budget of $25,000, and since this $9,500 is so much lower than that, we feel that it just allows a lot more extra money to be able to be allocated for expansion and additions to more just other community building events.
So Limestone Innovations believes that the union has a unique opportunity to present itself as a unifying and diverse place where students can go to celebrate the rich history of KU. We would finally like to end by thanking our client, the Kansas Memorial Union, and we appreciate the value and constant feedback and support during this process. Specifically, we would like to extend our thanks to David, Lisa, and JJ, and we would also additionally like to thank our class. Throughout this process, we have created insightful research and contributed to a positive and collaborative work environment. Finally, Limestone Innovations would like to thank our instructor, David Johnston, for allowing us to freely create and grow as students.
Your union, your legacy.
preserving KU traditions past, present, future. Thank you for your time, and we'd now like to open it up to questions.
I just would, I love the focus on legacy and tradition. Would you talk a little bit, sometimes I worry that we're too tradition oriented and that somehow runs students out of here. Could you talk about why you think that could be a strength for us?
Yeah, I think I'll let Emily take that one.
So for us, we visited the University of Missouri and looked at their student union, and one of the main things that I took away from that visit was just the fact that they had Mizzou traditions all over the union. So whether it was the decoration in the union. So it wasn't, it didn't envelop you, it didn't overwhelm you. It was just these little reminders and reiterations of what is important to the student body. And I think by creating a center for that, we have Allen Fieldhouse, that's a center of basketball tradition, but what about a center for KU traditions? Different things that are KU-centric, that aren't just basketball or sports related. A place where students can come and just walk around and be in an environment that sort of enriches that history and subtly teaches you that history while you're just studying or grabbing a coffee or, enjoying your space.
One of the things that I sort of gleamed is you guys suggesting that we focus more on interns. And I think that's something interesting that I ironically came up in a conversation yesterday about having more sort of specialized interns doing some of those pieces. Unrelated to that, I'm curious really specifically, this is an oddly specific question and I hesitated to ask it, why the Traditions Festival in spring versus fall? In my mind, fall is this like coming back to campus kind of time, and the comparison between that and things like, Union Fest and that kind of festival feeling of stuff.
Yeah, so we chose to do it in the spring semester because we do have things like Hawk Week in the fall semester that we feel kind of get students going for the beginning of the year, and then spring semester tends to be not that exciting really at the start. You just kind of come back and are thrown into classes. So we thought a Traditions Festival maybe at the beginning of February, where students have been back maybe for a week or two to acclimate, and new students who have also started in the spring semester, that Traditions Festival would kind of be a kickoff to hype everyone up for the semester. And also, we know that basketball season's kind of getting into the midst at that point, so we also thought in conjunction with that starting, that spring semester would be the optimal time for a Traditions Festival.
Cool, thanks.
Just one small question. Your budget was about $9,500, but it didn't display where you'd put your focus on those dollars. So how would you spend that money?
Most of our budget was in phase one, but within phase one, it was mostly oriented towards goal one. Goal one was a lot of the branding and imaging, so getting things like images to hang up in the union, banners. Also, a majority of that budget did go towards the Traditions Festival to have food and facilities for that. So that was where the majority of our budget was. And then phase two was that smaller 10% portion. Because it relied just more on the use of that expanded Union Ambassador program, and those would be interns who would not be receiving compensation, but anything that was in phase two, as far as budget-wise, was more of some of those just generic Your Union, Your Legacy buttons to be handed out to students, and posters and flyers and things like that.
So do you think being a brand ambassador or a union representative or whatever that group is called, do you think that that's enough motivation to just be in the group and promoting the union without some kind of perk of being it?
I mean, I personally think that the perk of being involved in something on campus is having that pride within that institution, and then having that intrinsic value with being part of a group that you're helping other students, you're carrying on that tradition legacy. So personally, I think that's a perk. I mean, they'll also we had that polo displayed, so they'll have a polo and things like that, but it's more of an intrinsic value, I think. For students who want to be involved in something like that, that's normally what they're doing it for.
And going off that slightly, the idea for us is that the goal is to create this legacy aspect, so we feel also that these union ambassadors want to create that legacy here. So they want to preserve this building and the traditions that have happened here, so that by doing the Union Ambassador program, they can ensure that their mark will be left and that this institution will also continue on into the future.
All right, thanks, guys. I like the buttons too.
Yeah, we got limestone
I like the buttons too.
We got you a button.
That's all right.
41?
No, that was 29.
Yeah, we're 29. Yeah.
29. Yeah, that's 41. 41, the Warhawk. All right.
That's for.
Got some snacks for the show?
Yep.
Just make sure when I start talking about your team, it's on the picture.
Thank you. We originally were going to do a blueprint format, and so a lot of this stuff was very blueprinty.
Hi guys. We're the last group, so don't worry, you're almost out of here. So without further ado, we are Incorporated, and we are the communication constructors behind the It All Starts Here campaign. I'm Victoria, and these are my teammates Rachel, Maddie, Sydney, Kaylin, and TJ. So we've all had our own unique experiences with the union, some more traditional than others. For TJ, the union was a home for Student Senate, SUA, and other campus organizations. For Maddie and I, it was a place to practice for Rock Chalk Review. And then there's Rachel, who reminds us that she is a frequent crier in the Hawk's Nest and has spent multiple nights on union couches. It has been such a pleasure working with this client and with this team especially. We could not have asked for a better cap to our time here at KU. It seems only fitting that we end it right where we started, at the union. So for a number of years, the union has acted as the living room of campus, providing a third home to students and giving them a comfortable and safe space of their own. We've thought about this, and we think that this concept is a bit dated and doesn't really capture the needs of students anymore. With technology, campus, and architecture changing, so is the need for a new concept for the union. So we've taken our own spin on things, modern spin on things, and we think that the union should rebrand itself as the Facebook of campus. Like Facebook, the union should be a place where all student voices can be heard and seen. It should be a place where students can go to get constantly updated information. They should be able to get information like any general campus news, news about upcoming events, news for other campus organizations, everything they should be able to get it at the union or at other union services. Facebook is also constantly updating, changing based on the needs of its users, and we think the union should do the same. Stay updated on things like your website and your social media. Keep it changing to stay relevant and relatable for your target audience, your students. So our campaign is obviously called It All Starts Here, and we've named it this because we think the Jayhawk journey truly does start right here in the union. This is the first place you come at orientation and the first place that really welcomes you to the university. So our overarching 3 objectives are be one of the students, unionification, not unification, and the journey. Be one of the students is designed to show that the union really is student-driven and not the big bad corporate board that people think it is. Unionification, not unification, is designed to relate all of the other memorial corporation services back to the main union, because we don't think enough people know what the union does on campus, and we think this is really, really important. Last, we have the journey, and the journey is going to show how the union really is a part of the Jayhawk journey and how it influences and impacts students and alumni every day. So under these objectives, we've come up with nearly 40 different tactics for you guys. Obviously, we're not going to show those all today. So we've narrowed it down to a few tactics that we think are really important for you to hear from us. And as an agency, it's our job to deliver more than just your typical print ads, banners, social media, stuff like that. So our tactics that we're going to show you are going to kind of push the boundaries a little bit. So these tactics are going to be split into 3 phases. We have phase 1, after the vote, phase 2, spreading the word, and ongoing tactics. Phase 1, after the vote, is going to start right now. It's going to start with tactics that will help recover post-referendum, and the purpose of it is to ensure a student-driven and connected image. Phase 2, spreading the word, is going to start in about June of 2018. It's going to look at phase 1 on a much larger scale, and the purpose is to further refine our objectives. This phase is also designed to be able to coincide with another referendum campaign. Last, we have ongoing tactics, and ongoing tactics are going to be things that help update things like your social media and your website, stuff that you can start renovating right now and continue to improve over time.
So to begin this presentation, we will discuss our first tactic, which is creating a video concept. The idea behind this concept is for the union to use video content as a shareable resource, because video content is used on social media as a way to target audiences on a larger scale. According to Facebook, account users' attention span is roughly 1.5 seconds. So that means brands need to be able to create engaging visual content that can connect with the consumers. So for example, in this commercial, you'll see 4 different individuals talk about their own unique experiences with the union, which could be used as a way to target audiences on social media, say if you were to upload it as a 30-second video on Facebook, reaching all KU students as well as outside demographics.
Ben, here in 1969, came to the School of Engineering. KU has been a really exciting time for the basketball outfit. They did not have the DeBruce Center when we came. Obviously, this is brand new, but this is quite a testimony to where the rules of basketball ought to be housed.
I'm a transfer student from a community college. It was a really tough transition in the beginning. I didn't really feel like I fit in, but then I came to the union. They showed me things I could get involved in, places that I could become more comfortable with the university, and they really helped me here and made it a much more smooth transition for me.
So my mom went to KU, and when she went here, she would study in the union, and so I like to study in the union.
Having graduated from KU, I really feel that some of my first grounding moments were started here at the union, and during that time I was given the task to plan Union Fest, and that's ultimately where I found my passion for what I wanted to do in the real world, and that's what I'm doing today.
So when I came to KU, I was an out-of-state student, and when I lived in Ellsworth and had to go to Mrs. E's every day for lunch and dinner, I found my friends there in the dining hall, and we've been friends ever since, 3 years later now.
So now, moving forward with the 2 phases, as Victoria mentioned earlier in the presentation, we at Incorporated believe that the union should work with Rock Chalk Central, which is an online system that will allow online booking to be more available to students, as well as we'll have tablet sign-ins outside the rooms, which will make rooms availability more accessible to students, also emphasizing the price reservation while identifying the price waivers for all students. And we also recommend that the union pursues a sponsorship with Samsung tablets in order to lower the donation costs for all students, in order ultimately that will benefit the union in the long run. And then moving on to phase 2, which is the event management services, we at Incorporated believe that these services should be expanded all through campus and not at just one centralized location, say the Underground or the Birds Union, because our main goal is to make these services accessible to all students so they have the freedom to access these services at any time, at any location, whenever they see fit.
As Sydney emphasized, one of the objectives we wanted to work towards is the idea that the union is not just one physical location, but it's instead the presence that's all across campus. And so our next tactic kind of deals with that. Hashtag KUBuzz is a hashtag that can be used on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and then curated to televisions that will be located across campus at key locations of the union. So for example, they could be at the DeBruce Center, the Underground, or the union, or just by a J-Break and Anschutz. By having these locations, we can have students view the union as the newsfeed of campus, allowing them to share information that has to do with campus events, campus information, or just general campus discussions. But making sure the Kansas Memorial Corporation logo is clearly displayed on each of those televisions, making sure that it's clear that they're the ones sparking that conversation. Ideally, this would also be done with a sponsorship with Samsung as well, extending that to the other locations. Overall, we believe this tactic will make sure that it views the Kansas Union as the key to the climate throughout the rest of campus. Now, earlier, Victoria mentioned that a couple of the tactics that we will be presenting are a little bit more bold than your traditional marketing than you might see. These next 2 tactics definitely do that. The first one has to do with the Bermuda Triangle, or the area of the hawk, the wheel, and the bull, where students do go to lose themselves, their keys, and even their dignity. But we want to make sure that we propose a way to actually interact with this in a positive way. From our focus groups, we learned a couple of different things. We learned 2 key problems. First, that students saw a lot of the services that were being offered here at the Kansas Union being duplicated at other entities across campus. And second, that they didn't view the location of the union as central to campus. We believe this tactic solves this in a couple of ways. First, while it's absolutely true the union is not physically central on campus when it comes to academic services, it is central when you look at the student culture and looking at the Lawrence community. The location next to the bars is actually a positive thing. We believe that we can actually isolate the union as a safe location, as is already being done by campus organizations. If you look at the Jayhawk buddy system, Safe Ride or Safe Bus, they have already isolated the union as a safe pickup location. All we have to do is figure out a way to get students up the hill to the Union Plaza and allow them to congregate in that area. We believe this can be done in a couple of different ways. There are very few things that students like more than food, but one of them is food at 1 o'clock in the morning, which is why we think it would be awesome to have KU dining options provided late into the evening or early into the morning, making sure those options are available for them late into the night. Also, we believe that having live entertainment like local bands, comedians, or even just an open mic night would allow it to be a safe place for students to congregate in a well-lit area while waiting for their safe ride. Now, we do understand that the cost of food can be quite as expensive, which is why we think it would be very good for the union to partner with campus organizations. For example, fraternities and sororities that want to have philanthropy or fundraising events would be able to have that food option up there, but provide that place for them to have it there so that organizations could lure the students up to that area. We believe that this would provide a safe location for students, but would also help students identify the union as part of their Jayhawk journey, making sure that it's not just about academics, but making sure that we recognize what a student is, which is part of a community. It's part of a culture. Now, the next tactic that we have here is probably the most bold that we'll present. Now, earlier you heard a little bit about a shutdown, and we have a similar ideal here. We call it our final shutdown, but in reality, it's actually more of a final scale down. As the largest employer of student employees on campus, we believe that the Monday of finals week, you should give every student the day off. Now, at first, this sounds like a lot. There are a couple different ways this can be implemented. So if you're looking at your dining locations, this might mean scaling down to 1 line or 2 lines of food, making sure that we prioritize things like the salad bar, because this might require less employees, but provide students with more food options. This also might mean identifying key locations. For example, looking at your J breaks and deciding, well, during finals weeks, the Anschutz one does need to remain open, whereas maybe the DeBruce one doesn't, and engineering doesn't as well. Finding those key locations that we need to remain open. So that's the first part of this, is making that shutdown actually occur. But the more important part of this is the communication aspect of it. Making sure there's communications in the weeks and days leading up to the shutdown and the day of. Not just informing the student employees that are given the day off, but also informing the other students of why it's occurring and how it's occurring and where they can still go to get their services. Making sure that they're still aware of what locations will still be open if their usual schedule is disrupted. Making sure there's clear signage at each of the locations that clearly describes all of the union locations, whether they'll be open for that day and when they will open back up again. We also believe you guys are doing a great job when it comes to providing other services here at the union during finals week. So for example, your finals breakfast could be a great example of something that could be provided as an alternative to a student whose usual breakfast is disrupted. By saying, you know, you didn't have your breakfast here at this location, but come enjoy a free breakfast at the union, may actually draw more students to your central location. We believe this tactic is bold, but will draw attention, which is why we think it's really important to make sure that we have this. We believe it will do 2 different things. First, it will help students identify all the different locations the union helps with, making sure that all those different locations are associated with the overall image of the Memorial Corporation. The second thing we think it will do is reinforce the brand image that the KU Memorial Corporation puts students first, putting the students first when it comes to allowing them to study for their finals in a time when they would normally be working.
This next tactic isn't as shocking as the final shutdown, but it is out-of-the-box thinking. With a saturated market of advertising, sometimes it is more effective to have the marketing go to the consumer instead of the other way around. People like to have information delivered to them instead of having to go find it themselves. Instead of an ad in the UDK or a banner hanging up at the union, sometimes it is important to hand-deliver your marketing message to the consumer. Students love to share their lives on social media, but it takes a significant amount of effort to have them openly advertise a brand. By giving the students like a automatically share-worthy event associated with the union brand, we can tap into the student's social media feed. Surprise and delight boxes are a perfect opportunity for this. You can go ahead and open the box now. This blue box would be full of union gear as well as other gifts for the students. The box is mainly for students who the union views as influencers across campus. Influencers will be discussed by Rachel later in the presentation. This blue box is meant to be delivered in classes, at campus offices, Greek housing, or campus housing. This box will have, the surprise and delight box will have the clear set of instructions to post the opening of the box on social media via Facebook Live or Instagram Live. This is a great way to tap into the student social media news feeds. Next, I'm going to have my teammates pass out some iPads to give you the opportunity to take a BuzzFeed quiz. Don't drop the iPad.
Yeah.
So the iPad should be ready and have the BuzzFeed quiz open for you to take right now as I continue the presentation. BuzzFeed quizzes have become a standard tactic that other brands use as shareable content. The union can easily capitalize on this trend. This example quiz is a short union-promoted personality quiz that, based on your answers, will tell you which union building you're most compatible to. Creating BuzzFeed quizzes like this is a great example of shareable content that emphasizes the different personalities and services offered at all the different union locations. Online quizzes are frequently shared on Facebook and other social media websites because it allows the opportunity for the user to connect and share results and answers with friends and bring a more personal aspect to the digital world. This quiz is not actually meant to be used, but is meant to serve as a representation about how all the union social media content needs to be personal and shareable so that they can connect to the students on their own level. Now, Kaylin is going to talk to you about the items that you received in your surprise and delight box.
So the many all-nighters weren't all work and no play. We got our hands dirty and we had a little fun making this next tactic come to life for you. We made our mark on this campaign just like we want incoming freshmen to do. And so freshmen come into orientation as a group of individuals, but they leave as a unified group of Jayhawks. With this banner, it'll show the crucial role that the union plays in community development. By allowing freshmen to place their hand on this banner their freshman year is the same as Facebook memories. It'll tie together their Jayhawk experiences 4 years later as they walk down the hill. The senior class can then carry this banner into commencement to represent their growth and their next steps into the Jayhawk journey. So next in your surprise and delight box, you'll find a t-shirt. This t-shirt will be given out at union events when students post on their Snapchat using the It All Starts Here filter. Students feel more comfortable posting on Snapchat, and it's more personal and a less saturated marketplace for advertising. This t-shirt can easily be altered from event to event to promote whatever service the union sees fit. The design, there are many opportunities to expand on this design and this tactic to maximize the union's message. And when students wear this t-shirt, it's an outward promotion of the union just like a like or a share on Facebook would do. Finally, in your surprise and delight box, you'll see that you've been invited to the union's first ever Sunday brunch. Sunday brunch is a favorite for university students. It's a time to take a step back from the academics and treat themselves to a meal with friends, maybe catching up from the Bermuda Triangle the night before. But it's unrealistic to expect that students can go down to Mass Street every weekend and pay $10 to $15 for this brunch. So we propose that the union solve this problem for students. With KU dining services and the subsidized cost of $5, the union can become a place for students to get an affordable brunch. So this will create a shareable event on Facebook and create the union in the students' minds as a student-oriented stop on their Jayhawk journey.
So now that Kaylin and Maddie have talked about the what, let's talk a little bit more about the who. So a common theme that all of us found in our focus groups was that students try new things and go to new places because their friends and family do so. An influencer program specifically tackles that idea. Influencers are a great way for brands like the union to connect both digitally and personally with consumers like students. A successful influencer program is built on 5 different steps. The first is getting very, very specific about your target audience. It's more than involved students or freshmen. It's accounting students and theater students and sorority sisters. Once you've gotten very specific about the people that you'd like to bring into the union, find people within those groups. This can be the president of the comedy club or a specific Alpha Chi Omega sister. When you found those people, look them up on Instagram.
Instagram is the best platform for an influencer program because it's able to visually tell stories. On Instagram, you're going to be looking for students that have about 2,000 followers, frequent comments on their pictures, and about 200 likes per photo, around that number. Once you've identified those people, send them a box like this with union stuff and a note thanking them for their contributions as students, but also include a customized hashtag, encouraging them to post on Instagram and then allowing you, the union, to track the engagement and interaction afterwards. Now, like Victoria said earlier, these are just some of the tactics that we've come up with. On the back of your Sunday brunch invitation, you'll find all the additional narrowed down tactics that we were able to come up with. During the Q&A portion of our presentation, feel free to ask questions about any of those that you may be curious about, as well as the tactics that we presented today. With our campaign, students will be able to create memories and stories at the union, identify all the union services as the bigger memorial corporation, and integrate the union from orientation to graduation while also acknowledging the rich and unique history that the union provides students. We are so thankful for this campaign and for you all as our client. We know here at Incorporated we're about to end our Jayhawk journey, but we're glad our careers all started here today. Thank you.
That was great, you guys. I am trying to find my questions that I highlighted with my handwriting, which is dreadful. Okay, so I thought you guys had some wonderful things in there. Thank you so very much for your creativity and your time in this. One question I had, I thought you guys had some really interesting thinking around the student employment experience. And I would imagine there's more of this in your plans book, but as I think you guys know, we employ about 750 students every year, and we're the biggest employer on campus of students. So how, as you guys think about that, are there other ways that we can, that is a natural ambassador sort of program in and of itself. Are there ways that you believe enhancing that student employment experience might help us kind of brand the union as an experiential versus a transactional piece?
We definitely talked about this in our plans book with a student marketing team and then also expanding the ambassador program, kind of like our peers have talked to you about today. But I think another very important part, and Michelle has told me this in a conversation before, that you want your ambassador program to kind of mirror Amazon ambassadors and Apple ambassadors. And I think a very important thing about their company culture is that they infuse it in meetings with all of their employees all the time. And I think that's what the key aspect is, making employee meetings regular and fun, and modeling almost a lifestyle that the union employees should employ. Do you all have anything to add?
No. Another thing that we kind of talked about was just in general, when you're looking at your social media, when you're looking at your website, one thing we really wanted to emphasize is the idea that it's not about the buildings, it's about the people that are within them. So one page from your particular website that we really liked is the one that has, a student employee who's handing out a country chicken cheddar wrap, one employee who's working at the EMS desk, and that is one page in particular of your page that does have people. But if you go to your main page, it's actually just a slideshow of your buildings, whereas the number of students that you impact every single day is so huge, whether it's just in the union or whether it's at the different locations or whether you're an employee from the students. So making those faces and that association on every platform that you have is really important, just to make it clear that it's not just about the corporation running a building, but it's about the people that are within it that you are continually supporting, continually working for, and continuing to push forward for that success.
Thank you. So is corporation a bad word?
We don't really think so, actually. I think that one thing that we also, I think Rachel and I definitely agree on, and we have had broad conversations about, is the idea of the corporation board. We think that there should be a more public face of the corporation board, showing who's really on it. The fact that you are half students is something that the rest of the university can't offer. you really are run by the students in conjunction with the people that are continuing there helping it run. Like, yes, it wouldn't be functional if we're fully students, but the fact that SUA, the main event programming of the union, is done mostly all by students, the fact the corporation board is half students is really, really important, but making that publicly known is really important as well. So the idea of a corporation run by students is different than a corporation.
Quick question. I was taken by the Bermuda zone, and one of the questions, you know, I think you hit on was the sense of safe interaction. One, how would having a safe bar situation in this union be useful as part of that context, or is that just extraneous? And secondarily, you know, the buffet seems to be going in that same direction of something where it's a hangout spot. Any other services and dining, et cetera, that play to that same concept?
David, are you asking us if we need more places to drink? Because I think the answer is always going to be yes for university students.
That's not quite what I was looking for, but I was thinking, you know, the appropriate place where I could actually hang and feel safe and not, you know, have to venture out necessarily to increasingly random places. Would that be useful as part of that context?
I'm sorry.
No, you go first.
I mean, yes is the first answer to that. Making sure that there are safe alternatives. When we held our focus groups, I think a lot of different people mentioned JBL and the loss of JBL. And that's not to say that it, you know, it was so used by students that every single student used it while they were here, but the fact that some students found it as their safe alternative to going out and drinking. The other part of that is that, you know, we do want to identify the fact that some students aren't going to use those services. They are going to go to the Bermuda Triangle or other bars. They're going to engage in unsafe drinking practices. But making sure that they can have at least some portion of their night that is safe, that they are getting safe rides, that they're not running out into the street right in front of the Hawk, you know, that they are not, you know, going home with someone that they shouldn't be going, shouldn't be driving, that they're waiting for their safe bus, and they feel safe coming up to that area is really important. Making the union a place where it's not necessarily about a cool place to hang out, but taking something that is already student culture and combining it and providing a useful service to add on to that culture.
And also kind of going with that, it's kind of like what TJ said, it's not making it like the cool destination, but making it a stop on students' way home. There are so many students who travel through Jayhawk Boulevard either in cars or walking on their way back at the end of the evening. If there's a spot like the Union right up the hill where people could stay and wait for a ride, have other people to be around so they're not wandering the streets alone, it could provide that safe place for them on campus.
Comment first. I love this influencers thing. So I never thought that I really liked TJ Maxx, but I just die for their paid Instagram stories, and I don't know why. And I watch them every night before bed. And that has been on my mind so much that I wrote JJ an email about it and was like, this is where we need to go. But I hadn't quite figured out this box thing, and I love it. And I literally sat there thinking, how can I get TJ Maxx to send me a $50 card? Anyway, because I want to do that. And then, so I kind of feel like, and you guys have the benefit and the challenge of being the last group, that there's sort of this, some groups said it all sort of starts here, or that tradition, that legacy, you start here. And some groups it's more than just a building, and that's the tradition and the legacy. That hashtag more than just a building literally came out of a meeting after reading some KU art stuff where we were like, damn it, we're more than just a building. And we've sort of pitched sticking with that and carrying that through. But we used to do orientation. Our theme used to be it all starts here. And so I'm feeling this sort of like, which way do we go? Do we do them both? I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that piece.
I guess I feel like they're one and the same. You know, I think that you can say both messages because the union's editorial authority gives you that benefit and that opportunity. And I think that when you look at students, they don't all think the same way and they don't all react the same way. And this is also something that we touch more in our plans book as well. But some students are going to react better to it all starts here, and other students, probably people that are a little bit older and have had more interaction with the union are going to react better to more than a building. And I think giving you all the ability to do both, that's where both the benefit and the challenge lies. Anybody?
It all starts here was just kind of like the overarching name of it, but like we said, one of our objectives was the journey. So it's starting here, but then explaining how it's continuing here. And we didn't, or I think we mentioned in our plans book, but the banner says, the Kansas Memorial Union welcomes you to the University of Kansas. And then eventually after graduation, we want that to be able to switch and say the Kansas Memorial Union honors you, the class of 2017, whatever it is, you know. So it's saying you are starting here, your Jayhawk journey, but even after it's over, your career started here and you're continuing on your journey, but it all relates back to the union. Kind of makes sense. So it starts here, but it's also a continuation.
This is a question for the entire group. None of you have tapped into grad students, and I'm curious if one that was intentional, and if it was, why? Or do you? I'm just curious if that was an area that you, or a population that you looked at.
So we talked about it a little bit. If one of our, what we called the student union representatives, if they should, we should encompass the graduate students. And I used to work at KU Endowment, and I got to know a lot of people through that, calling people every night asking for money, for donations. So, but the overall response from graduate students is like, what I felt at least, and I know a lot of my peers felt there as well, was I'm here to get something done, and then I want to be gone. They don't really try to interact on campus, and if anything, they try maybe against it a little bit more because they are that older and they do not feel like they're really represented in the population. It would definitely be something that you would have to research more, but from the general consensus, that's what at least we found.
Also, I think that when I think about a graduate student versus a new student here or a prospective student who's here with their family, who am I going to really want to target there, you know? Because for somebody who's just starting at the beginning, I think it's so much more important to instill the new renovated brand or whatnot in them so that they can carry that on and that builds, whereas a graduate student might be here for 2 years or one. And I don't know, that's where my thought process is.
I would like to add off of that. As somebody who looked at graduate school for a little bit, it wasn't, when I was looking at grad schools, to me it wasn't, what is the campus culture like? It was more, what is the curriculum? What's the job placement? More professional focused than tradition and experience focused. Definitely when I was a freshman, I wanted the traditions and the glitz and the glamour, but when I looked at grad schools, it was more curriculum, education, more academic based.
Yeah, I was just going to add that when we were doing our research in the beginning phases of this campaigns, we did include graduate students because I think at the same time they are a part of this campus and they are really important and they definitely have a voice on this campus. So just to let you guys know that we actually did include them and we made it a priority when we were conducting our research.
One other thing that we do want to look back on is the statistics of who voted in students in elections, who are more inclined to actually vote in a referendum. When we were looking at our marketing campaign specifically, we wanted to propose target audiences that would be inclined to vote in student Senate elections. And while it is important for the union to provide services for grad students, and it's very important that grad students feel like services are being provided for them, it's also important when you're looking at a campaign for a referendum to look at who your key audiences are, because you don't have unlimited resources. So trying to figure out who's going to vote in basically an undergraduate election and then taking it from there. It kind of depends on the voice you want to define with that as well. So let's say, for example, one of the things that we have on there is you're getting handed a mic again, is working to have endorsements when it comes to Senate, having Senate liaisons. I actually think that having those endorsements from people that are already involved in votes and have already been involved in campaigns that are involved elsewhere in campus is a positive thing if you're going to go through it that way. I think if you're going to separate yourself totally from Student Senate, that might be a different story, that you want to motivate grad students, and that's your one of your main target audiences for that particular campaign. But the easier way to actually get the votes is to get the people that are already working to get those votes.
If you do want to target grad students, your best method would probably be to get grad students who did their undergrad at KU to be your ambassadors for it, because they have, a connection and they're interacting day to day with these grad students. So to find those key influencers would be the best way if you wanted to target grad students.
Let's thank our final group. And to close the evening, I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed client for any final comments, observations, questions for the larger group,
Sure.
And then we'll close.
One, I guess I'd extend our great appreciation and thanks to the groups for the work they've done. We came into this knowing we would get valuable insights out of this because we've had that experience with the groups before, and the work has always been highly valuable and highly employed. So I think you can count on us taking these insights and putting them into play. The second thing I would say to this group is really appreciate you taking this project on. And this includes David Johnston, because this was an odd one to take on. It didn't fit into the normal mode, and I think it had particular challenges given those weird time frames of it. And so the fact that you were able to produce such, I thought, comprehensive and thoughtful and useful information really was a tribute to the group, because it was not a cookie cutter project that I would find a lot of case studies on out there. So again, I think we're most appreciative of the effort, the insight, and the special challenge this presented. So again, thank you all. And David, again, thank you for allowing us to come into this.
I want to say one more time how pleased and impressed with the students I am, and how frankly proud I am of what you guys generated in such a short turnaround. I was telling Professor Basso at the break, it is hard to believe that the referendum was less than a month ago. We didn't learn, I think we learned the results on the 16th, maybe? 13th? It is May 2nd, you guys. Granted, you guys had a wealth of information and data from which to draw insights, and the fact that your recommendations that you put together in such a short time span that could have gone either direction, but the amount of overlap we saw in terms of the recommendations, I think only validates the learnings that you guys drew from your classmates and from your peers that was buried in that research. So I commend you for making good, sound recommendations, and I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk. So let me say this. This was the most significant moment of your academic careers. The next one is commencement. When you guys walk down the hill, that's going to make me very proud, and I'll look for you there. But you'll only get there if you behave safely. So I'll encourage you to enjoy yourselves this evening. You guys have earned the right to celebrate with each other. Be safe, and remember that as you guys are about to leave KU and embark on your professional careers, I will remind you to always remember that there is no such thing as a former Jayhawk. Once a Jayhawk, always a Jayhawk. Rock chalk and good evening.